Short track racing, playoffs. How much more excitement do you need for a Saturday night under the lights? It's Bristol, baby. We break down the race and everything that goes with it, all your DFS plays, all your favorite bets. Come with us down the back road, will ya?
It's a non-points race, but it is a short race. Checker flag. That's where all this
Yes, sir. We are down the back road as the Bass Pro Night Shop race comes to head at Bristol. I'm Seth Woolcock, joined by Rod Gomez tonight here on the back road. Rod, I appreciate you joining us. This is exciting because I think with this Bristol night race, not only is it a true spectacle and does it get its own night, no football involved, but also there's a shit ton on the line. There are guys who might be eliminated from the playoffs that we thought could go all the way. How are you feeling as we head into it just 2 days away?
Better than Martin Truex Jr. right now. I'll tell you that much right now. Regular season champion on the outside looking in. I tell you, that dude was riding high for a while. And it just takes one race, man. One race to send you scrapping 4 places. But I'm excited. Obviously, Saturday night, you get all day Sunday to watch football now because racing's done. Trucks are going on right now. And then we've got Xfinity happening on Friday night under the lights. Saturday night wraps up a racing weekend. Seth, it doesn't get any better than this, honestly.
No, it doesn't. And the books, they have made it worth it. I feel like we saw some really interesting markets out there that we'll get to in our betting segment at the end of the show. And then we'll also have our DFS tiers ahead of it. But there's some wonky prices out there, some wonky offerings, and I'm really excited to break it down with you tonight. But Rod, before we can right the ship and head to Bristol, we do need to look back at what was a fun but not so fun ending to a Kansas race. And we went back to overtime when we were in Kansas last weekend, Rod. It was another race dominated by the number 11 car, and he just couldn't put it together in the end. Chris Buescher goes down with one. The caution comes out. We thought maybe he could limp back to pit road. He doesn't. It's heartbreaking. He gets another chance at the green-white checkered. He's in 5th. Tyler Reddick alongside for the ride. Denny's backed off. He's worried about Larson in the rear view. It is a mess. He ends up cashing the top 3 for us, but we've been on this Denny outright back-to-back weeks, and it feels like we're snake bitten here, my friend.
It hurt. And we thought that he was on the right strategy, too, getting behind the guy with the fresher tires, where Reddick was behind the guy with the old tires, right? We thought, that'll hold up. That'll hold up Suarez. Suarez will hold up Reddick. Will be good. Hamlin will shoot to the front. Reddick pulls that move to the inside, and the rest is history, man. I'm with you, Seth. I was on Hamlin outright at 9-1. I was also on Brad Keselowski at 22-1. He was leading laps, and I thought, oh, wow,
yes,
we may have an opportunity for a pretty good upset here. Unfortunately, none of that panned out. I pretty much put my ticket right in the trash and just didn't talk to anybody for the next 3 or 4 hours. I needed to cool down.
And just the craziness that came with this race for the playoff drivers, once again, it has been nothing like smooth sailing like we thought coming into these last 2 races here. Martin Truex Jr. almost immediately exits this race with his issue. Ryan Blaney had a strong day going, couldn't finish it off. And Bubba Wallace, man, Bubba was up there. I had a long shot ticket. I caught the book sleeping after qualifying on Saturday and was riding a long shot Bubba, and I was feeling pretty good about it. So, man, it feels like we're in a very interesting situation here. Do you factor in where people are on the cut line to where you're betting them? Because like you said, we have Truex looking out right now. We also have Kevin Harvick right above the cut line.
You kind of have to, but at the same time, there's a reason that they're on the outside. I mean, obviously, it's sort of like you take it from a perspective of they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to take a swing, right? I mean, Truex isn't necessarily all that far off the cut line. So
Mhm.
maybe a good solid day for him, and some trouble from anybody else could get him in. But some of these guys on the farther outside, they may have to take bigger swings. But at the same time, there's a reason why they already started that far outside of the cut line. It's not as if they were a big solid contender all season long. So, I mean, at the top, it's been top heavy now that we've gotten in the playoffs, obviously,
Mhm.
and with these guys getting the problems that they're having, it still continues to be top heavy from the books perspective. So, yeah, I mean, it's difficult to handicap using playoffs as a gauge for what you're doing, but
Mhm.
obviously you can't completely ignore it because these teams are going to want to advance, and to advance, sometimes they got to do what everybody else isn't doing.
And let's talk about what they might be doing here as we head to Bristol with some of these trends and some of the facts and figures to look at here of the short track.
Hey, Michael, it was only 20% chance of rain. I think we got all 20.
So we're going to the unique short track of Bristol here, Rod. The stages are laid out pretty nicely, 125, and then a long 250 at the end. Looking at some of the trends from previous winners, they have come from the top 5 in the grid 57% of the time here. The last time someone was on one from the pool, though, Carl Edwards, all the way back in 2016. So it's usually been someone in that 2 through 5 range. Ford, they've won 3 of the last 5, and Yoder and Chevy have just won 1 each since 2018 here at the night race at Bristol. Anything there stick out to you?
Well, so also too, we talked about it a little bit in our DFS show as well. The guys that start within the top 5 are the ones that have normally led a lot of laps in
Yes.
this race. Chase Elliott is an outlier from last season. So when we're talking about DFS purposes too, you got to look to the front. This may be a week where you want to wait until qualifying to set your lineups, because those people within the top 5 are the ones that go on to lead 100 and so laps. I mean, it's Kyle Larson did it, right? I mean, like I said, Chase Elliott did it from the back, but these guys that start up front, Denny Hamlin, they tend to lead a lot of the laps. So, I mean, as far as starting positions are concerned, that's a very big thing to take into account, especially for your DFS lineups.
Yeah, and we're going to get an early jump on practice and qualifying here on Friday, 4:35 p.m. Eastern time. That's when practice gets underway, and then 5:20 is qualifying. But if you want to be invested in the qualifying at all, there are some matchup bets out there for qualifying this week. You're going to need to be in before that 4:35 mark. So just something to keep in mind here. Rod, when looking at Bristol, what are you considering here? I looked at the 2022 version of this race the most heavily in my data. I did weigh Dover a good amount as well. This is a unique comp, but Dover's kind of one of those B comp tracks. So I like Dover. And then just a little bit, I wanted to look at Bristol Dirt just to see who had speed, but I didn't weigh it very heavily. Anything else you looked at here?
So I did take a look at, Richmond and Martinsville, only because, again, short track racing is what I'm kind of looking at. I'm not necessarily concerned with the finish. I'm concerned about how they were doing in braking situations, how they were doing with, this isn't necessarily a speed track, as it were. I mean, every car can do about 87 miles an hour, which is the average speed on this track. So it's not about the speed. It's about how can you handle short track racing. And some of those drivers that you see actually can handle short track racing are the ones that I'm looking at for Bristol. Obviously, you take Bristol into huge account because this is the only track that can compare to itself. But yeah, I mean, really from a stylistic standpoint is what I'm looking at most of the other short tracks on this schedule.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. There are people in this field that we're going to know they are short track guys. Guys like Ryan Preece, Chase Briscoe can mix it up on some short tracks as well. They get a bump this week. That's something we have to keep in mind here as we lay out our DFS tiers and our best bets later in the show. Rod, let's go ahead and get a little more specific here in tire tiers. I don't think I had a tougher week all season trying to rank these drivers pre-show, Rod. And it is very tough because there's so much to weigh here when it comes to playoffs, when it comes to short track racing, when it comes to Bristol specifically. So I'm going to give you the floor. Feel free to put one driver up top, two drivers, however many you feel confident. The floor is yours, my friend.
It's funny because after maybe the first 5, I almost feel like I'm just grasping at straws because I mean, there's drivers that are dominant on this track, but we haven't seen it at certain points this season. And then there's drivers that you are like, wow, they're really good on this track, but like, do you feel like putting them in the A category? It's just like you, Seth, very, very tough to do that. But listen, I'm going to throw up the 4 and the 8. I'll put both of those guys up. And they're 1A and 1B in mine. I know that we'll talk about the 5 car here in a second, but look, when you talk about dominance on this track, right? Kevin Harvick has 42 races on this track, right? 42. Kyle Busch has 33. Of those, Kyle Busch has 8 wins on this track. That's the most of any driver. It is 5 more than Kevin. I mean, it's 2 more than his brother, 5 more than Kevin. So, I mean, Kevin only has 3. Kurt has 6. So that's a pretty good feather. Those Bushes know how to get around this track. But of that 2, Kyle has 19 top 10s, 14 top 5s. Kevin has 22 top 10s, 14 top 5s. You want to talk about laps led around this track? Kyle Busch, 2,593 in his starts. Kevin Harvick, 1,209. That's the first 2 as far as laps led are concerned. I understand 1,000% that the 8 car and the 4 car have had their fair share of issues this year.
Oh yeah.
But it's got to be a turning point, right? There's got to be a turning point. It's got to change at some point, I would think, for these guys. 8 gets a new pit crew this week. So we'll see how that factors into it. He's grabbing Austin Dillon's pit crew. Maybe things improve for him there. We'll see. I don't know. But 4 and the 8, I think in good GPP, maybe even some smaller cash games, these 2 guys have to be in your lineup at some point.
And the thing about Kevin Harvick is he's never going to burn you. Even last season here, ran in the top 5 a lot of this race. Didn't get the finished in 10th, but was a strong play no matter what. I'm going to go with a guy that I feel like I faded the last month unnecessarily, and it's Kyle Larson. And I think the only stat I need to throw out for Kyle Larson here from last Bristol race, Rod, percent of laps in the top 15, 99% for Kyle Larson. This guy, unless he gets into some type of issue, and it seems like the issues happen for him a little less here at Bristol for whatever reason, he's been getting the finishes here. You're looking at average finish among all actives. It's Kyle Larson, 12.8 here. So I like Kyle Larson a lot more in DFS than I do betting this week, and we can touch on that later. But yeah, give me the number 5 up here. Back to you, Rod.
Yeah, and again, that's really where it's at too. This is a stronger DFS play, or even underdog fantasy if you're into that. It's than betting. So yeah, because the numbers for him are gross, and like you said, we'll get to that in a second. Toss his teammate up there in the A's. Chase Elliott got to go for broke, right? Obviously, it doesn't matter. He's not in the playoffs now. He's just running around to run around, but he's also good at this track, right? He led a ton of laps. He came from the back of the pack even to lead a lot of laps in the last race that they were in. So, for Chase Elliott, this is an opportunity for him to sort of, I don't know, salvage what was a very disappointing season overall. So yeah, 23rd, he finished 2nd last year. He didn't lead any laps in that one, but in the 2021 race, he led 129 laps. Unfortunately, he finished 25th in that one. He led 23 the year before, 88, 33, 38. Point being, Chase Elliott is at the front of most of these races on Bristol. And he's going for broke. So there's nothing for them to gain by playing different strategies. They just want to go out and win this race. So everybody else may be playing games. The 9 car, he's just going to be running for a good solid finish.
Man, and it's crazy when you think about this season. Like, has there ever been a race where Chase has even really led laps at all? Like, he's barely led any laps all season. It is insane that we've gotten to this point, but you are right, Rod. Like, everything, we've kind of known this. If he wasn't getting in the playoffs, all roads lead to Bristol for Chase Elliott. So let's see what he can do here. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put in one of the hottest drivers, despite what he did to our Denny Hamlin bet last week, Rod. Give it up for Chris Buescher here. And I think the DraftKings and the FanDuels of the world are finally catching up with Chris Buescher and what he can offer here for a DFS lineup. And I like him specifically at Bristol. We know he won last season here. However, the advanced metrics don't lie either for this guy. Most laps led in the race, #1 in driver rating. He's someone that I think you can bank in your hat. Like, do I think Chris Buescher can win this race? 100%. I think he's a guy who can be there at the end, especially when you look at the one fact he was 14th at mid-race last season. Like, he kind of came from the back and charged up, and he showed us there and throughout the season, Rod, that Chris Buescher can adjust throughout races, especially these night races, these longer lap races. He seems better than anyone else when there's 5 to 10 to go. His car's better dialed in than anyone else on the track.
He's such a, he's a hot driver right now, and it's so frustrating when he doesn't finish the way you want him to. And it's weird because at the beginning of the year, I don't know that I would have told you that you and I would be sitting here singing the praises of Chris Buescher the way we are and putting him in the A tier, right? So that's just a testament to the guy's season, to RFK season in general, which, again, if you've listened to anybody talk about NASCAR over the last month and a half, RFK is one of the main topics of conversation because of how good they are. So yeah, definitely love some Chris Buescher as well. Seth, do you want to put the 11 in A tier or the B tier? Where do you feel comfortable after last week?
Man,
I know we're not speaking his name, but
he has hurt me in DFS. He's hurt me in betting lately. Like, I'm okay with the B's. I'm okay with the high B this week. I think he deserves it a little bit, Rod, honestly.
Okay. We'll stick him in the B's. The only reason that it's so frustrating is because we know that the last couple of weeks have been tough. But also, listen, it's also been kind of tough from a DFS standpoint for the last couple of races for Denny Hamlin. In 2021, he started second, finished ninth, which, again, not a gigantically bad DFS day, but he definitely didn't gain you too many points because he didn't lead you, or he led you 65 laps. So at least there was that in there. But the year before that, or in 2022, started fourth, finished ninth, didn't lead you any laps. So again, a little backslide from where he started. 2020, same kind of thing, right? He started 7th, finished 21st, but only led 1 lap in that one. In 2020, in the earlier race, started 10th, finished 17th, but he did lead you 131 laps. I'm hoping that he leads some laps. Really just hoping that Denny Hamlin leads some laps, because that's where you're going to get probably the most value out of him. I'm not on him outright to win this race. I'm not out him to even probably finish in the top 5. I just want him to get up, lead some laps, and be able to get me some that way. He's led laps in the last, she's got to go all the way back to Loudon to the last time he hasn't led at least 1 lap in this. He led 9 at Pocono, 20 at Richmond, 1 at Michigan, 8 at Indy, 3 at Watkins Glen, 12 at Daytona, 177 at Darlington before that, and then 63 last week. So he's been in the front. He'll get you some points for laps led, but yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough for a good finish for him.
Yeah, Denny Hamlin, when you're looking at laps led in the last 4 races here at Bristol, he's up there. He's up there with the best of them. But he's not better than Kyle Larson. He's not better than Keselowski, not better than Harvick. There's so many people this week that I feel like are better plays in your GPPs than Denny Hamlin. So I don't mind that call there. I think even you could make an argument for Chris Buescher. I'd rather play him over Hamlin this week. And I feel like we don't talk a lot about, or Chris Bell, sorry. We don't talk a lot about Chris Bell on the show right now, just because he's been one of those guys. He's really cooled off since Bristol Dirt actually was the last time we really said, wow, like go Chris Bell. But he showed speed lately. He finally, I feel like, has that speed back. And in all the modeling I did this week, all the metrics point to Chris Bell, man. He is all the way at the top for me. You got to pay the price though. Can you pay the piper here at 10.8, Rod? That's the question mark with Chris Bell, because often he's not returning value at that price tag. So that's why I think he's a B for me. My model, the stats, it all leads me to Chris Bell, but I'm scared because we know how he's been lately.
Yeah, and really, even at this racetrack itself, he's got 2 decent finishes, a 4th place last season where he led 143 laps, and then a 9th place in 2020. But outside of that, 28th, 29th, like, I don't know if I trust Christopher Bell at all. In fact, I've got him in an underdog play, and just spoiler alert, I'm taking the lower end of this finishing position on Chris Bell. Listen, it's not bad. It's 9.5, but I'm still taking the lower end of that. He may sneak into the top 10, but I don't know. He scares me because of the fact that he's not really on a hot streak. And yeah, he won 2 eliminator races last year, right? Two wins on the cusp of getting cut last year, but I don't know that he's got that magic in his hat this year. So I don't know. I would
Okay,
do it. I
wow.
would load up, but I don't know. I don't have
I
the
feel like he's been the chalky play this week. I feel like everyone's been talking about Chris Bell this week, and that's I don't know. I don't want to be in the group think tank right now, so I'm glad you're pushing back on it for sure. Is there anyone else though that you do think belongs in this B tier?
Joey Logano, believe it or not. I think the 22 car is in for a decent finish. They've got his finishing position on underdog at 11.5. I think he finds his way into at least an 11th place finish. And really, when you're looking at it too, it's difficult because you look back at his track history, and I used Christopher Bell's track history against him. So I'm going to use Denny or Joey Logano's against him, but I'm also going to say that I feel like if you go even back a little farther for Joey Logano, the bad luck's been bad luck lately, but he has historically been okay on this track. 26 starts, 10 top 10s, 5 top 5s. Last year he had a suspension problem that took him out of the race. He finished 27th, but before that, an 11th place finish. Not a good couple of years there in 2020 and 2019. 21st place finish, 16th place finish, but third, fourth, ninth the years before that. He does have 2 wins on this track, so I mean, Denny or Joey Logano rather is one of those guys where he could come out and have a good day, or he could really come out and cost you. But you got to forget, or you got to remember, he won the championship last season, so he's not that terrible of a driver. He's not that far removed from it. So,
Right.
And plus the last 3 out of the last 4 races have been top 10 finishes. 2 of those have been top 5. So he's on the right momentum swing. Just need him to get something. 7th at Richmond. I was telling you, I looked at Richmond for that. He had 7th at Richmond, 2nd at Martinsville. He led 25 laps there. So obviously we know he can short track race. He won in the dirt here. So there's something to be said about Joey Logano being able to get around Bristol. Hopefully he gets it done this week. And I think there's a good chance he will.
Joey Logano. I'm going to go with another Ford here in Brad Keselowski. And I feel like finally they're catching up on the RFK train over here at the pricing center. Like it's been forever, man. I feel like we've been getting discounts on Keselowski and Buescher. They've been A's for us for really the last month here. And I think Brad has a really good chance here this weekend as well, Rod. Some books are hanging him out there for the taking. He has been kind of snake bit, but the one thing we do know about Brad here, led 109 laps last year when he had a terrible year. And when you look at actually lap leaders this season, like Brad's up there. Like Brad's right up there with Keselowski. He's better than Logano, better than Kyle Busch, better than Buescher. He's led laps. He just can't win a race. But for DFS purposes, that's totally fine for me. You're paying up, and I would prefer Buescher at that price tag of 9,800. I'll pay down a little bit for Buescher and Harvick, but I like him just as much as those guys. I think he has to be at least in one lineup or two.
Yeah, and again, we talk about RFK and how amazing they've been. And if we think Buescher's good, you know that Keselowski tends to hang around the same area as him. So you're going to have to put Keselowski up there as well. So totally agree with you on that one. All right. You know what? Go ahead and give me Eric Jones. I think Eric Jones deserves to be up here. Little slept on as far as this particular track is concerned. And here's what's crazy about Eric Jones. Bristol, for DFS purposes at least, has been pretty good to him. Last year, I mean, he started 24th, finished 21st, didn't lose you any points. For a guy that is the price of Eric Jones, you're not necessarily crying about that. $7,400, good 20th place finish is okay. But go back the year before that, finished 8th here after starting 22nd. Lots of place differential points, and was able to get you an 8th place finish on top of that. The year before that in the 20 car, 3rd place finish after he started 20th. 15th start, 5th place finish, right? So he's gotten around this. And in fact, in 2017, if you want to go all the way back in the time machine, Eric Jones in the 77 car started on the pole, finished 2nd, led 260 laps around this track.
Wow.
The 77 car is way worse than the 43 car. And Eric Jones just seems to be able to do special things at Bristol. And look, his short tracks this season have been up and down, but I definitely, like I said, love his speed on Bristol. And, you kind of just want to root for this 43 car, this legacy team, to find its footing on the way out the door.
And they really have lately. They've been great, man. Third at Kansas, like they were competing there. 10th at Darlington, and we're running better there as well. Eric Jones has been great this second half of the season. If you would almost like do a cutoff right around, July sometime, he's probably been a top 10 driver since then. So I love that shout out. I don't have any Eric Jones on my card, but now after hearing those finishes, I'm a little more intrigued here, Rod. Let's go ahead and let's put the number 19 up, though. I mean, to have him as not even a top 10 driver this week, Rod, just feels a little bit weird and a little bit dirty. 8,700 for a guy who is still averaging over 46 DraftKings points per race, man. Like I think that's part of it here. That's part of the play. And I get the history. The recent runs at Bristol have not been great for MTJ. Like we can't sugarcoat that at all. However, there's a lot of other intriguing things here. He dominated Dover. That was my closest comp track here for this season. He dominated there. Finished 7th on the dirt, 3rd at Martinsville. He's had good short track runs this season. So if you can look past the recent history at this track and history in general at this track for Truex, it hasn't been as great as some of these other drivers we've talked about. But I think he belongs here at a value play, 8,700. I'm over it all day.
Well, and again, he has to take a lot of risks this race. He
does.
I mean, again,
he needs stage points bad.
There you go. And that's what I'm saying. I know that I said that quite possibly he will just need a good solid finish. That's not going to be enough for him. He's going to want to go out. He's going to want to make sure that he leaves nothing to chance. And at the end of it, if he gets cut, it's because something happened. It's not because he didn't try.
Right.
So, already getting to the C's, and I don't know what to do. Put Ryan Preece up in the C's. I made a case for him earlier to have a decent finish. And really, again, it's because, pardon me, SHR is actually okay on short tracks. And Ryan Preece is a $6,300 driver that will definitely give you a lot of flexibility in your lineups. And look, again, it's not as if we're asking him to win this race. It's $6,300. You just want him to have a couple of days like he has in the past here on this track. Started 27th in 2021, finished 17th. Not a bad DFS day on that. The year before that, started 22nd, finished 9th. The year before, or the race before that in 2020, started 33rd, finished 12th. He's moving up. That's place differential points. At $6,300, that's all you're asking for out of that guy. And I think a C driver should be able to get you plenty of differential points when you're looking at your DFS lineup. So I like his ability to move up on this track, especially in this configuration. And plus, I mean, listen, you look at Richmond, started 33rd, finished 18th. Martinsville was kind of tough. He started on the pole, finished 15th, but he did lead you 135 laps in that race. So not bad there. 5th place finish at Richmond too. Again, DFS purposes, he's been perfectly serviceable all season long. I think this is another track where he will be too.
I've been looking all week to try to find a matchup for Ryan Preece, and I failed to because he is a weapon. He is a weapon at these types of tracks, so I 100% agree with that call there, Rod. I'm going to go ahead and put the number 24 up here just as a sign of respect. Guy finished 3rd in this race last season. He's been solid at these shorter tracks, like nothing to write home about. I think the reason he's kind of slid this far is just 10-2. That's the price tag here. It's 10-2, and I think there's just a lot of guys in that 9,000 range I'm paying down for before I'm paying up for Byron here.
Yeah, it's tough. And yeah, you're right. As a sign of respect, he did finish 3rd, and it just seems like he's the most overlooked guy who's won as many races as he has this season, right? We were talking about him being red hot at the beginning of the season, and now we're just like, maybe he's a C driver. We'll see. I don't know. That's definitely tough for him to fall. Oh, yeah. Seth.
Do it. You know what you want to do.
Do I know what I want to do?
If you don't, Ross Chastain belongs right here too, Rod. I 100% think he belongs here. He's getting better, man. He still has not had the speed he had last season anywhere close to it. But now, we have to realize what Ross Chastain is. He's about a 12th to 15th place driver at this point. He can get hot like he did at Darlington a couple weeks ago, get a top 5 run, but he's looking at it like hoping for a top 10 at this point. Last year at this track, he did have a good run, 10 in the overall total speed rankings, and then finished 6th on that day as well. So I think Ross has something for Bristol here. He's a good short tracker. Doesn't always take him Hail Melons to finish good at these types of tracks. So I'm in at Ross Chastain at that price tag of 8.5 there.
Okay, I don't know. The thing about Ross Chastain is that he can pop up and win you a race like he did in Nashville, or he could just come out and be almost irrelevant all day long, but then all of a sudden kind of fall into a decent finish. So I'm kind of done. He was going to be my favorite driver last year. I was all excited about it, but I can't anymore with Ross. There's too much heartbreak for me. It's like watching the Giants play in odd years. It's not fun. So yeah. Where do I go from here? I guess put AJ Allmendinger in the mix.
You love AJ Allmendinger. You got a soft spot for that guy.
I do. I can't help it. His one run in the 16 car here last year, he started 13th, finished 7th. It's just something that I can't make a case for too many other of these guys that I really, really enjoy. Like, I'm looking at the finishes for guys like Blaney, for, anybody else in that mix, and I'm seeing a ton of 30s, and it's just, it doesn't do anything for me. Like, and that's the only thing that makes me a little bit frustrated, is because all of these guys that are left now don't necessarily have the track record I'm looking for to suggest them. So yeah, if I'm going to hang one, I'll just hang it on AJ Allmendinger. Like I said, he did finish 7th here last year. There's a possibility for him to finish inside of the top 10 this week. And I mean, Kaulig hasn't necessarily made a lot of noise, but yeah, we'll see how it works.
Okay. All right. Well, I will take your AJ Allmendinger and I will raise it to my Michael McDowell. I don't think there's anything wrong with Michael McDowell and playing him this week, folks. You're looking at a guy who I don't think is going to fuck you over. That's not Michael McDowell here at Bristol as of late. Finished 11th last season here. Also 11th fastest late in the run. He got a lot better late, as a lot of the Fords did. Busher, Brad, an average position on the track, 13.9. So I think Michael McDowell is a little bit of a sneaky play here. I'm not betting him for a top 10, but I think he could squeeze out a back of the end top 10 here for Michael McDowell. At 6,600, you're getting a playoff driver, a guy who has something on the line still. He's the cheapest of the bunch of the playoff guys. So I'll take him at 6,600 here. I'm locking him in.
All right. Let me see. Well, you know what? Let's move to the D's.
Yes.
We'll go to the D's. Yep. I think we're out of C drivers. Give me Cole Custer. Give me Cole Custer. Give me the Cole Custer car. Only because, look, I know it's Rick Ware. I know we laugh at Rick Ware, but Cole Custer is actually not a bad driver overall. And to be perfectly honest with you, if anybody else were in this 51 car, I would definitely tell you to go to hell about taking Cole Custer. I don't think he's doing everybody a disservice being in this. In fact, look, last season, he was in the 41. He finished 8th.
Yeah. I was about to say Cole Custer had a damn good run here.
Yeah, it's not as if this was completely. Now, again, this is not the 51 car, but for DFS purposes, if I'm going to dig way down at the bottom for a driver like that, he's at $5,200. I just want him to finish the race in one piece. Cole Custer's done that all but one race this season. He hasn't been posting the best finishes, but at least he's there. So, yeah, I'm okay with that.
All right. Well, you're going deep, so I guess I'll match you here. Let's get on the DraftKings app. Let's start scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And right above Cole Custer at 5,300 is our guy Todd Gilliland. We haven't said this guy's name in a couple weeks, but I think I take that back. A couple months, Rod. We haven't even ranked him, I think, in a long time, but he's kind of sneaky good here. Had a top 10 finish at Bristol. Durst pit road strategy came into play with that as well. However, also had a really nice run here. Finished 18th in this race in the fall last season. So I think Todd Gilliland likes it when the lights come on, man. I'm high on Ford this weekend. So I'm high on Todd.
Okay.
How would you feel about if your kids came home and said, "Hey, Dad, I'm high on Todd"?
I would ask where the drug was and how can I find some. That is a good thing to be high on, I suppose. Uh, what a back deal. Back deals for you on high on Todd. Well, I guess I'd be remiss if I did not throw the 7 car up there just for Cody. Yeah, and as Wendy says, the dinger. Yes, Wendy, the dinger. Like I said, I have a soft spot for the dinger, unfortunately. But yeah, Corey LaJoy, he's another one of those guys down there toward the bottom of the list. He's $5,500 right now on DraftKings. All I can hope for is that he has a day like he did last year where he finished in the top 15 after starting 31st. I mean, Cody will go on and tell you that this 7 car has been fast. It's just had bad luck. And, he'll sing you some songs about how this 7 car is amazing. And I'll tell him that I think his love runs a little too deep. But, again, 22nd place finish at Kansas, 10th at Daytona, 15th at Michigan. I mean, he's finishing races, which is what you want. So for DFS purposes, I guess D driver for Corey LaJoy is where it's at.
Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and just throw 3 of them up here that are all kind of in the same I'm not playing this week tier, but they are a sign of respect. It's the number 12 car of Ryan Blaney, the number 23 of Bubba Wallace, and then the number 45 of Tyler Reddick coming off a win here. And listen, I get that they are playoff drivers. We shouldn't have them below, but we're talking DFS here. We are talking DFS. And when I think it comes to playing these guys, they're not going to score you a lot of points this week. They're right in that dead zone of 8,800, 8,300, 8,400. And I don't want to pay for these players. There are other people in that tier I am more comfortable paying. Like you said, man, Ryan Blaney just hasn't had the finishes here lately. He has a couple top 5s in his career at Bristol, but it's like 5th. You know what I mean? Same with Alex Bowman. Best career finish at Bristol has been 5th. He has a couple top 10s here as well, but just hasn't shown the speed. And I did lie because I was digging Alex Bowman earlier in the week a little bit and came back to him and I was looking at some more stuff and I said, all right, I just can't. Recent form matters too much coming in here, Rod. I think that was the issue. He does have decent career Bristol stats, but couldn't put anything on him. We got Wendy in the chat saying, "Hey, the dinger, a little dinger love from Wendy. What's up, Wendy? Thanks for joining us tonight here. Hope you're enjoying Thursday Night Football as well." Rod, let's go ahead. Unless there's anyone else in D's, maybe Briscoe, or do you think he's an F?
It's funny. It's that Cody loves him some Briscoe, so I guess toss him in the D's. It's SHR. I mean, talk about how Briscoe is fast at this track and is led at this track, and has been very historically okay. I guess for DFS purposes, if everybody feels the same way that I feel about him, then you should probably play him just in case.
Hey man, 6th in average finish among actives here. Only has 2 runs here on the concrete. But still, I don't know. 13.5 average finish. I'm all right with that. I'm all right with that with Briscoe. He's been good on the dirt here as well. So yeah, I'll ride a little Briscoe, I think. Let's start this painful tier and try to round this out, Rod.
Just put Carson Hocevar up there. Actually, been doing pretty well in that 42. I mean, if obviously Eric Jones is up there in the B's, then Carson Hocevar has been working his way toward at least the D's at this point. And obviously he's riding this out for the rest of the season, so he's a little secure in the fact that he's going to be in the Cup Series every single week. A lot like Gragson and Gibbs last season, right? They kind of came in and ran the rest of the season out. Hocevar is the same way. He's actually chasing for a truck championship right now. So, he's going to have some track time tonight. As a matter of fact, right now, he's getting some track time. So we'll see if that translates to this Saturday race at all.
Okay. I'm going to go with Daniel Suarez here. He's reliable. He has 8 top 20s in his last 10 appearances at Bristol, non-dirt that is. So interested in him. Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon's a little bit of a threat when we come here sometimes. Just now he loses pit crew though. That was one of the good things I felt like about playing Austin Dillon this season is he actually had a pretty good and above average pit crew, but 6,100 for a guy here who has ran well in the past. So I'm okay with Austin Dillon. Any interest in him or anyone else in this F tier, Rod?
Dylan's crazy because he's probably going to pop up and have a good week this week. And I've not been on him at all. So I feel like this is the week where he's going to be good and I'm going to be off of him. And well, I'm always off of him, but I mean, I'll be even more off of him.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think we can even get down to the point where we just start rattling them off, the rest of them. I don't have any faith in the rest of these guys at all. Like,
yeah.
Cindric.
Yeah. Terrible runs lately from Austin Cindric. Hasn't put anything together. Eric Almirola, let's throw him on the board. He's SHR. They tend to run a little bit better at some of these short tracks. The number 15 car, man, JJ Yaley, shout out, bro. We love some JJ Yaley. Harrison Burton, not his time quite yet on these short tracks. Justin Haley, actually throw Justin Haley on this as well. Justin Haley's had some really good finishes here at Bristol, as good as 12th here in his 2 runs. So I like Justin Haley a little bit here as well. I just think he's loafing around in this car. That's why I think he's like barely being ranked here. The number 47 car, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., his finishes are fucking horrendous at Bristol when it's not dirt. It is really, really bad. And I wanted to weigh dirt a little bit. And then I saw, oh man, Ricky Stenhouse is so good on dirt here and he's terrible when it's the asphalt. So
let me go through that. Just to emphasize your point, since he's joined the 47 team, 34th, 40th, 20th, 33rd. Even before that, 33rd, 33rd, 24th in the 17. Not good.
Find ways to fade Ricky Stenhouse Jr. this week. I might have one for you later on in the show. Ty Gibbs, man, love the season Ty Gibbs put together, but they've kind of stripped it down here. Like they have bigger fish to fry over there at Joe Gibbs Racing, despite being the chosen one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a sad thing for Gibbs too, because obviously off to a bright start and just somehow plateaued, and that's the frustrating part, because that team, that driver obviously wants to do better, but I think he learned it's not as easy to have success at the top level as it is in the Xfinity series.
Yep. Ty Dillon, best finish here for him, 18th. I don't think he'll get anywhere close to that. Maybe a 30th, maybe a 31st. I like him a little bit better than I would say most weeks for Ty Dillon. This is one of his better tracks, but still, I'm good on that 77. And then old BJ McLeod back in that number 78 car. He's a fucking weapon. So look out for a little BJ this weekend as well. Rod, let's go ahead and clean things up here in the parking garage props. So there's something in the air right now that I feel like this is a week, while we have some great offerings, pre-practice and qualifying, this is also kind of a chaotic race. You know what I mean? It's not as crazy as some of these super speedways we go to, but for a short track, Bristol night, when you're going 500 laps around in this little thing, like you're going to get some chaos happening, Rod. So I think I will be allocating my units very, very smartly, pre-practice qualifying, and also then again, maybe taking a couple shots live.
I think you have to either take them after qualifying too. I mean, obviously do what you do beforehand, sure, but wait till qualifying on this one too, because again, a lot of times if they start well, that's going to be indicative to a pretty good day. So if a car that doesn't normally finish up front or in the top 5 qualifies in the front, you want to fade them because just in case they don't. Or if a car that normally runs in the top 5 finish or starts in the middle of the pack and the odds kind of dip because of that, you might want to take advantage of that as well. But yeah, pre-race, there's some pretty decent odds. I think we found some stuff that we liked as we were heading into this race.
All right, let's go to the outright market first here. Rod, what did you find over there that you think NASCAR bettors should be taking advantage of here heading to Bristol?
I'm double checking to make sure if the line has moved any, because I am on Kevin Harvick. I got him actually at 16-1. And again, this is really only narrative driven. So I'll bet 365. You can find him at 16-1. At some point, this has got to happen for him. This is his last season, his last shot. Bristol, one of the better tracks that he's been on. I already told you about all the laps that he led. I already told you about all of his top 5s, his top 10s. A storybook for Kevin Harvick would be to win this one. And then Cody reminded me, go on and win Phoenix at the end of the season as well for for him to kind of close the book on his career. So this 4 team has been fast. They're up around the front. Don't know why they don't get the finishes. Maybe it's the pit calls. Maybe it's the just accidents that happen. But I like Harvick's number at 16-1. We just randle off all the times that he's finished inside of the top 10 and the top 5. So if he can do that again this race, I think he stands a pretty decent chance. And listen, when you have the favorites that are hovering around 4-1, 5-1, I think looking down the list a little bit to a guy like Kevin Harvick, 16-1, makes a little more sense.
If not now, win. If not now, win, Kevin Harvick.
Exactly.
So looks like you are targeting a Ford there. I'm also going to target a Ford. I'm going back to the well with Chris Buescher. He's been good to us this season. He's been good to a lot of people in the NASCAR betting industry. And we talked about the metrics earlier. Second in total speed ranking, third in green flag speed, the best speed in the 4th segment. If you broke down the race into 4s rather than 3s. I think Chris Buescher is going to have that late run speed. We talked about it earlier in the show, Rod. He's a great adjuster. I don't know if it's the feedback he's giving his team that is better than everyone else, but they're close on their initial setup usually here, and I think he's going to make his car that much better as we get later in the race here. Most laps led, number 1 in driver rating, and also 9th at my favorite comp track this week, Dover. So I think everything's going to come together for Chris Buescher, and him and Brad could be battling out once again on a Saturday night.
What a good story that would be, right? I mean, obviously, we definitely see that RFK has been back on the rise, especially on Bristol. On Saturday night, yeah, that'll be a fun little duel to watch.
Yes. Yep. Anything else here in the outright markets, pre-practice and qualifying for you, Rod? Because Buescher is my only mark so far.
I really only, I mean, I suggested Harvick on the show, but only because I found him at 6-1. And even that kind of made me a little bit, because I don't know. I don't trust it. I'd rather throw something out there on a longer shot than try to take the favorite in this one.
Okay. Same here. I do want to go to the placement props, though, where I am going to be targeting one of the favorites, and it's Chris Bell with a top 5. It is really hard to bet Chris Bell. You really have to take your shots, and do not go crazy on the unit allocation. I'm going to go 1 unit. Not great at getting great finishes, but showing some speed. We finally saw it early in practice and qualifying last week, and he comes back number 1 in all the advanced metrics. Looking at just Bristol 2022, folks, total speed ranking number 1, green flag speed number 1, late run speed number 1, average position number 1, number 1 by mid race as well. I don't think he can win this race just because I haven't seen the late run speed out of Chris Bell this season, Rod, but I think he's going to be in good enough position early. I think he's going to lead a lot of laps in this race, and then he's going to coast to about a 4th or a 5th place finish for me. So I'm excited about him. He's ran good on all these short tracks leading up to this as well.
Yeah, I mean, I already told you my thoughts on Christopher Bell. It's I don't feel like the team has the right type of mentality heading in to this week.
He won Bristol Dirt though.
I know, but that was a long
seventh at Dover. Like, he's been good at the short tracks this season though.
It's true. It's just, I don't know.
I get it. It's like someone said on the NASCAR betting preview show here on the channel yesterday, when you bet Chris Bell, it feels like you're making a donation half the time.
and again, that's really what it feels like too. It's like, well, here to the Chris Bell fund. But
yes.
Yeah,
so this is me taking my shot here. Anything else in the placement props that you found?
Listen, I do actually like Eric Jones's top 10 number. In a market, top 10s are not fun to bet. I mean, just
recently,
like,
no.
Yeah, Kyle Busch -160, Kyle Larson -265, Denny Hamlin -220. Like, it's not fun to bet the top 10 market in this one. So I'm going to take Eric Jones. We talked about him earlier in the DFS app. He's +230.
I see that. Caesars.
Caesars has him at +230. So I'll take that for sure, because like I said, he'll pop up and have a really good finish for you. He's done it in the last couple of races. We talked about it as well. So this 43 team is trending in the right direction, and it's not hard. I mean, top 10. That's all we're asking out of this 43 card, and he's done it already. So give me that one. I love it. +230.
Rod, I really like that. Like, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna throw that on my card and give you credit for that one, buddy, because really good shout out there. I'm gonna do one more here in the placement props, and I will say I am just taking a sprinkle on another outright that I failed to mention. It's MTJ 16-1 at DraftKings. how can you, Rod? We've been betting MTJ 5-1, 6-1 the last 3 months, and now we're getting it 16-1. And I get the we kind of touched on it earlier. The late runs, or the latest runs at Bristol have not been kind to this guy. But I like him there on a sprinkle, and also top 10 -125. For a guy who's third at Martinsville, dominated Dover, finished 7th on the dirt this year. He checks all the boxes at the short tracks here so far. He just doesn't check them at Bristol specifically. However, Rod, he knew earlier than anyone else last Sunday that it was going to come down to this for him, that he needed to step the fuck up. And I think he's going to be competitive in this one. I think he's going to hang around the top 10, top 5 all day. Do I think he has the speed to win this? I don't know. That is the question. We haven't seen it lately, but man, has he caught some fucking terrible breaks here in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been so tough. But and again, I mean, what does that do to you as a driver who had so much success earlier in the season, right? You were shaking a lot of the rust off of what happened last year, right? The personal life and driving on the same thing. You get to a place where you win the regular season championship, and then you get to the postseason and it disappears. Like me, look, I know I'm about as old as Martin Truex Jr. There's days where you wake up in the morning and go, why the hell am I even doing what I'm doing right now? And so, when you get to the point where you're at with Truex, it's like, that might be where he's at. He might be just waking up in the morning going, did I say I was coming back for another season?
Shit, I think it's the opposite. I think he's ready to because he gets to the next round. Am I wrong that he's not right back in a good position again?
Well, sure, with the points wise, especially too, because he's gonna get all those points again. So
exactly. Yeah. So that I think he just needs to show up for one race, and he knows that. So that's why I like him in the top 10 market, and a little sprinkle there. Anything else in the placement props, or do you want to head to head-to-heads and groups?
I found one that was pretty interesting, and that's both to finish in the top 10. We talked about, both to finish in the top 3, rather. I'm sorry. This is the one I was looking at. I had the wrong tab open. Sorry. I had Brad Keselowski and Chase Elliott both to finish in the top 3. That's 10-1 over on Caesars. You were talking about how Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski could be battling for the win at the end of this. What if Chase Elliott sneaks up into a 3rd place finish at the end of this, and Brad Keselowski and Chase Elliott are 2 and 3, and Chris Buescher ends up winning this one 10-1. It's a long shot, but it's a scenario that we kind of played out in the show. So I just saw that and I thought, well, if this happens, then we'll go.
All right, we'll go. We will go indeed. We got Sam here in the chat saying, I know nothing about NASCAR, but I'm here to learn. We appreciate that, Sam. We are your people. Right now, we're in the betting market, so we're talking a little betting. We did some DFS earlier in the week. The one thing you need to know about NASCAR straight up, it is an unpredictable sport when you're putting DFS dollars, when you're putting money to bet on, but it is fun as hell, and it's a great time. So we're going to be your guides here for the rest of the evening. We are in the head-to-heads and the groups now, Rod, and I touched on this one a little bit earlier, but I do not get how Ricky Stenhouse is the favorite over Michael McDowell. This is on FanDuel, near plus money for Michael McDowell, -102 for him versus Stenhouse at -126. McDowell finished 11th in this race last season, average position in that race 13.9. So was a top 15 car for a lot of the day. 3 top 20s in his last 4 runs here, and 2 of those being top 10s, or the 1 top 10 and then 11th. So he's ran good, man. And Rod, you already went through Stenhouse's finishes, but there's a lot of 30s. There's a lot of late 20s. His average finish in the last 4 runs here is 33rd. Best finish of 20. It's absolutely garbage here for Stenhouse.
Yeah, it's bad. And unfortunately, that's one side you have to say. You can't, if everybody wants to go. I mean, I know it was a fun story, right? Stenhouse wins the Daytona 500. He gets himself in the playoffs. That's fun. That's fun. But there's a reason why he's on the far end of this cut line looking in. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know Michael McDowell is too, but I think Michael McDowell can at least make some moves here. Bristol's one of his better tracks. Stenhouse, I think this is a bad matchup for the books. Anything else that you found advantageous, Rod? And I did want to mention as well, we actually have some qualifying bets. New market for me, so I honestly have not had the availability to dive into that and really make some educated decisions there. Have you, my friend?
I did actually. I found Logano over Harvick in qualifying. For as much as we think Harvick's going to finish well, historically his starting position has not necessarily been as good as Joey Logano's has on this track. So it's crazy to think because obviously the finishes are better for Kevin Harvick, but his starting positions have not necessarily been up to par. So where on the other hand, Joey Logano, and this season too, Joey Logano has been a very good qualifier. So it's just a matter of I kind of weighed both of those in there and came up with Joey Logano over Kevin Harvick in qualifying. Maybe it's the new qualifying, maybe it's not, but for Harvick, his starts have been 7th, 8th, 4th, 8th, 8th here at Bristol, which is all fine and well. But you look at what he's done this season as far as qualifying, because like I said, this is that new qualifying too for these guys. And now my computer wants to lock up as I'm trying to look at the stats. His last few starts: 20th, 7th, 10th, 33rd, 38th,
Wow.
22nd. Richmond, he did have an 8th place start, which is good. That's okay. That was a short track start. But you go back to Martinsville, he actually started in 7th. Started in 7th, so not bad there. But Richmond 10th. Joey Logano has figured out this qualifying. Kevin Harvick really hasn't, so that's where I was going with that.
I like that actually a lot. That's another really good one I might have to add in my card, Rod. Top 4 qualifier on the season for Joey Logano in terms of average starting position. And Harvick's down the list quite a bit, man. Quite a bit for sure. So I don't mind that at all. I think that's a really good shout out there. We got Sam in the chat saying, who's the Ludwig Adberg of NASCAR? I need someone to root for. Oh, man, listen. Turn on a race and just let the race play out. Watch some post-race interviews. I promise you're going to find some good people to root for. We got a lot of young guys coming up in the sport and also a lot of grizzled veterans as well that are feisty as hell. So a lot of fun people to root for sure, Sam.
I'll tell you, Sam, what my brother did to me. He gave me 3 races. And he said at the end of 3 races, you get to pick your favorite driver. So, Sam, you get 3 races, and you get to watch this all play out. And at the end of 3 races, come back. Let us know who your favorite driver is at the end of that.
There we go. Rod, anything else for you here in head-to-heads and groups, or do you want to head to the specials?
Like in the head-to-head, I found Chase Briscoe over Daniel Suarez at plus money. Yeah, it's plus 110 for Chase Briscoe over Daniel Suarez. And for Briscoe, two starts on this track, 13th and 14th. Now, we said it wasn't necessarily all that great. I mean, he did start in 2nd in 2022, so and finished 14th. In the year before that, he finished in 13th place. So for Chase Briscoe, has actually had some pretty decent runs on this. As for Daniel Suarez, he's got 10 starts altogether. His last 4 finishes: 18th, 26th, 22nd, 19th. Short track racing is not something that Daniel Suarez likes to do. Whereas Chase Briscoe, on the other hand, he is a short track racer. So give him the edge in this one, especially at plus money. So plus 110 for Suarez over Briscoe. Briscoe over Suarez. I'm sorry.
Can I ask where that is, Rod?
That's on Caesars.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Did not see that one over here. All right. I want to throw a special out for you, Rod, because we have another new market that just kind of opened up this week. And these were some of those specials that was the over-under for manufacturers. Had never seen these before. The one that I liked the most was...
Oh, you're going to take it, huh? You're going to take it from me. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You call it out.
No, you go. Go ahead.
All right. Fords over 3.5 in the top 10 at Caesars. I got to grab that line again. I don't have the line on that. I think it was something around like minus 125.
Plus 105, actually. Over. I'm sorry. It's minus 140.
Okay. Yeah. And listen, I think that the Fords are going to show up here. They always show up at these night races. I love RFK. I love Harvick for top 10s. Like that gives me 3 that I'm very confident in top 10s. So then we need one of the other Fords to sneak in here. Logano, not a bad chance here. Ryan Blaney, I don't love Ryan Blaney like I have a lot of weeks recently. But Michael McDowell, we talked about him as well. Briscoe, we just mentioned him. Cole Custer ran here good last season. So now maybe that opens the door for Ryan Preece, who is a good Ford as well. So I think there's a lot of outs here to get that fourth Ford here and cash this over ticket on the Fords. Your thoughts on this, or would you go the other direction, Rod?
I don't know. For me, the Fords would be a little bit tough, only because it is to get them all. But then in the top 10, you figure that's pretty feasible when you talk about Keselowski, when you talk about Busch, or when you talk about even Logano, right? Getting inside of the top 10. Those guys all probably belong up there. So that's 3 already. And then, like you said, sneaking one of them up there.
You got Harvick as well. So yeah,
Harvick, that's a top. There it is.
Yeah,
I already gave you 4 cars that can get there. So I like that, especially at -140. Obviously, the books do too. I'm going to step in the other direction. Over 4.5 Chevys is actually at +130.
I saw it was plus money. Yeah.
Yeah. And I get it. But last year, 5 Chevys were in the top 10. Obviously, the year before that, there was 4. So really just 1 shy of that number. A couple of years ago, it was a little more tough. There was only 3 in the top 10. But you had guys like Kyle Busch, who now drives a Chevy as well, right? Eric Jones, who now drives a Chevy. He was another top 10 driver back then. So that's 2 more. That's 5. So driver-wise, there was 5 Chevy drivers of 2023 in the mix for that. So we know that Chevy is pretty much the dominant driver no matter where you go, because there's just so damn many of them. Yeah. Obviously, there's not a lot of Fords, not a lot. So even statistically speaking, you should be able to get 5 Chevys inside of the top 10, as you did in 2020 as well on the dirt race here. No, this is not the dirt race. I'm sorry, but it was Jimmy Johnson in the early 2020 race. It was Austin Dillon, it was Kurt Busch, and it was William Byron, as well as Bubba Wallace, hanging out the top 10 in that one. So 3 out of 4 years, Chevy's had 5 in the top 10 at plus money. You gotta take that.
I like it, man. I like it. And I think in general, that means we're a little bit fading Toyota this week. We like guys like Martin Truex Jr. At least I do a little bit. I like a little Christopher Bell, but it seems like you're straight up fading the Toyotas this week. So I think that plays into the narrative there that we might have some manufacturer luck there. But take advantage of these unique markets this week, guys. Like, Rod, you and I have been screaming for weeks and months, I feel like, that we want some unique things, and we have them out there. So let's have a fun weekend of racing here. For us at In Between Media, easiest way you can support us, give us a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content. Subscribe, come back, hang out with us again. We have 2 fantasy football podcasts a week live on this channel. We have 2 NASCAR shows between us here on the Backroad and the NASCAR betting preview show the day before as well. So make sure you're checking that out. We still have some swing season PGA content. And then, Rod, you and Cody, you're still going strong to the rest of NASCAR season. Tell us what you got going on over there, please.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've got all of our 5 shows. Obviously, the recap show, Trucks, Xfinity, Cup. Then we got DFS and underdog plays that we give out every week as well. Just had a fantastic Trucks episode. I know that the trucks are already going right now, but listen, if you get an opportunity, we didn't have a lot of time to put the show out, but we doubled up with Phil and Derek of the NASCAR betting preview show.
Hell yeah.
That was a blast. So definitely want to do that. And of course, Seth, we're going to cross over with you eventually. We're going to work out the details, but you and Elliot, or you and Elliot need to come in and hang with us on the NASCAR Gambling Podcast.
Hell yeah, man. I'm looking forward to it. I got Lena here in the chat saying, new to NASCAR and here to learn. Thanks for the insight. Man, that's 2 new people checking out our NASCAR content tonight. We greatly appreciate it, guys. We're back here every Thursday night throughout the rest of the NASCAR season. We got about 8 races left or so, Rod? Maybe a little under that? Maybe 7, 6?
I think it's about 8.
Okay. Yes. So we got a couple months left. Come rock and roll with us. Come down the back road. We like to have fun over here. We'll make sure we get you educated as well. But thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel. Come back and hang out with us again. And we'll see you guys next week down the back road.